All right, I think we can say hello and welcome to the live stream of the beta launch of Umbraco 9. Very, very exciting times. Time for some celebration. I've got my Umbraco mug loaded up, ready to go. In order to have a look at what Umbraco 9 actually contains, or the beta release contains, I've invited a few people to join me today on this call. First up is Filip, CMS Program Manager for Umbraco. Hello, Filip.
Yep. Hello.
Welcome and congratulations.
Thanks. Big day.
Yeah, it certainly is. We've also got Bjarke Berg, lead developer on the Unicore product, and also team lead on the Unicore community team. Welcome, Bjarke, and huge congratulations to you. It's been a long time coming.
Yep, thank you. And it's not just my work, of course. But
no, there's a lot of people involved in this, and we'll make plenty of shout outs today, I think. And also joining us is Warren Buckley, developer advocate at Umbraco HQ. You've had a bit of time to tinker around with Umbraco 9.
Oh yes.
So we'll talk a bit.
I've got Eagle Eye on the chat, so and the questions. So just any questions that come up, just ping away, and I'll keep an eye on them.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for that. And regarding questions, there should be a Q&A and maybe also a chat available, and you're more than welcome to post any questions there, and we'll get to them either as we go along and also pick it up at the end of the session to make sure that we answer all the questions in there. So with that said, let's take it from the top. What is Umbraco 9 and why is there a beta for Umbraco 9? Let's start out with you, Filip.
Yeah, so Umbraco 9 is the next major version of Umbraco. And the big feature or the big change is that we are, moving everything around to get a new technology stack or to get a new technology framework beneath it, so that from Umbraco 9, Umbraco runs on .NET 5 or what used to be .NET Core, yeah, it's been a big project, as I said. Bjarke and the team at HQ and the community team has done an excellent job over many months, and I think it's we're so close to an actual launch now. But of course, we still have some edges here and there that needs a little bit of polish, and that's really why we're doing a beta now, because we think it's ready to start building on. It's ready to start testing, to build packages on, and yeah, to try out. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's essentially Umbraco 8 running on.
It's the latest framework. Right? It's Bjarke has had the nice and glorious job of merging all the 8 versions and features we've launched since we started up. So the beta is feature complete with 8.13 that was released about a week ago. So. Yeah, it's all the bells and whistles that you know from 8, just on a new shiny platform.
Fantastic. Very, very, very exciting stuff. And with that, let's hand it over to you, Bjarke. Can you tell us a bit about what actually is included? Well, it's everything, I guess, but rundown of Umbraco 9.
Exactly. That's the nice part, because it's easier to say what is not part now. So
good spot to be in.
Yeah. So basically, it is everything that you know from Umbraco 8.13, but now it runs on .NET 5 or .NET 6 if you try out one of the previews, and run on the new web framework from Microsoft called ASP.NET Core, and that is still called Core. So the cool thing here is all .NET applications is basically just a console app, and then the web framework is just NuGet packages. So you just have dependencies, and you can update your underlying framework versions and still run on Umbraco 9. So that is super cool. So you can get all the benefits of future versions of .NET Core also. And we know the next version will be shipped in November this year.
Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah, and then of course, as part of this, we have migrated a lot of the underlying technologies. So users and member authorization is migrated to a new thing called ASP.NET Core identity. So users was implemented in the old identity, just called ASP.NET identity. So the changes here is not that big. But for members, these were using an even older technology called membership providers. And these are now migrated to ASP.NET Core Identity 2, Core 2. And the cool thing is we can share a lot of things between users and members implementations now.
Yeah, because they're actually building on exactly the same technology, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And
nice.
the next thing was to update all of our third-party dependencies that were not compatible. So we had a lot of dependencies that just needed to be updated to latest versions to be compatible. But we also had the client dependency, the framework used to minimize and bundle client dependencies, JavaScript, CSS, and so on. This is replaced by another project called Smidge. Both are implemented and maintained by Shannon from HQ. And Smidge is implemented with Umbraco in mind, so that was a perfect fit. Yeah. And then we had image processor for all the image processing. This is replaced with another project called Image Sharp. And also here, the author of this project is the same person. In this case, it's James South. And it's really not that much Umbraco knows about image manipulations. All we know is how to generate URLs. And these URLs have parameters that needs to be picked up by something. And here we can use Image Sharp, but we have added abstractions so you can implement your own if you have a license to another framework. I know Google also have something, but so far Image Sharp has worked perfectly for us.
Yeah, that's actually been a big part of the Unicore project. In the beginning was creating all these abstractions, so it wasn't as tightly coupled to third-party dependencies.
Exactly. So the way we attacked this big project was to move as much as possible to shared code base between framework and .NET Core. And we had almost all core business logic that was not tightly coupled to web technology isolated, and we knew that it works. And then we started migrating all the web stuff. So that was pretty nice. And as part of all this abstraction stuff we have done, we also introduced a new pattern instead of the static events. The static events had some quirks, especially because they were tightly coupled to specific implementations. So say the content service had some static events, and we can't raise these events from other classes. It needs to be from that specific class. So even that we have abstractions on the class, then we can't use the same abstraction. So instead we have a new notification pattern, which is heavily inspired by the mediator notifications. And now it makes dependency injection very easy. And now we both support async handlers and async publish of these new notifications. And the final benefit is they're not tightly coupled to a specific implementation. So it's possible to just implement a new abstraction, replace one of ours, and still publish the same events or notifications.
It's fantastic. I know this stuff makes a lot of people very, very happy. There's been so much talk about the dependency injection patterns over the years, and getting this to the point where it is now is just really, really great to see.
That is also one of the new benefits of the new web framework, because dependency injection is the first citizen. So we have easy ways to inject in views, in filters, and so on, which was impossible in the old framework. So that is super nice. Yeah. So the next cool thing is the install process. So we had to change this due to limitations in NuGet, because .NET 5 and .NET Core applications need to run on the new project format known as SDK format. We can't execute a script every time we install and upgrade a NuGet package. and we heavily depended on that for Umbraco 7 and 8. So instead, we have used their new way to make projects, a new installation process called .NET New templates. And the cool thing is that you install them using NuGet, but they becomes available in the CLI, but also for Visual Studio and Writer for that sake. So it is the future way of doing it. As far as I know, it is still in a preview feature for Visual Studio, but I heard rumors that on the next release, it will be a default feature. So that is super nice.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I think what really strikes me is that with all of these things, Umbraco now, even more than it did before, really follows the pattern set out by Microsoft, both in terms of MVC and project structure and all of these things, right? So it should be easier if you are a .NET 5, .NET Core developer to actually pick up and start using Umbraco, because it is exactly the same conventions that we use everywhere.
Exactly. And that is also one of the reasons we have these new install process, because we are just following the common pattern with the program CS file and the startup file. And we put all the configuration of Umbraco into these files. So you don't have to do it.
Yeah. Massive. Fantastic. And you said we implemented this. Could you maybe talk a bit about who has actually been working on all of this stuff?
Yeah, so we have, of course, a team at HQ, but we also have the Unicore team. And the Unicore team for the last couple of months have focused on the members, which has been a great help. But in the entire period, we have also looked much into Linux support, because this is an area that we need to test a lot in, especially paths, because the file systems in Linux are case sensitive. Paths needs to be requested at the exact casing that the files are. And that was not the case before. So areas like this is good. Is a good area for the community team. In general, we used the team to look at nice to have things, and HQ to have all the need to have things. So
fantastic. Is there anything to be aware of in the beta version? Are there any outstanding issues or anything that,
yeah,
that people
first of all, it's still just a beta. Don't use it in production yet, but we think it's safe to start your projects if you don't have a tight deadline. Right now we have 2 known issues, or one of them is not really an issue but just a fact. You can't reboot your application or recycle it anymore, because the web framework is not tightly coupled to a specific web server anymore, like the old framework were tightly coupled to IIS. So Umbraco still needs to reboot sometimes when you install a package. And right now you will need to do it manually, or you can have a program in front that watch that if the application is shutting down, it will reboot it. A lot of reverse proxies has this feature, so you could use NGINX, or I'm also sure you could use IIS or IIS Express to do that. And Microsoft also recommend to have something in front like IIS or NGINX on production, even that the web framework ships with a built-in web server. And next we have Examine is still not migrated to the latest Lucene.net, which is net standard compatible. So right now Examine is only applied on Windows, but this is the next thing we will look into, and I guess it will be available in a couple of weeks.
Very cool, very cool. So next question I have on my list is, who do we actually think this beta is relevant for? I mean, it is a feature complete CMS, so I hope a lot of people will be very interested. But Filip, maybe there's some people that we would specifically like to have a look at it.
Yeah, this is where I look into a camera and say, you. No, I mean, yeah, so the the main objective that we want to today, or we have two main objectives really. One is that we want to have real testing. I mean, we're of course testing it a lot while we're developing it, but we know that Umbraco, because of the nature of it, like it's so flexible, it's used in a million different ways, with weird edge cases here and there, and we really want to see them, find their way into to Umbraco 9, so that if there are problems, we can have them fixed before we actually do a release. So it's like we're really aiming for the actual release to be stable from day one, and if that's going to happen, then we need you and everybody on Umbraco 8 to start, trying to do an upgrade to see if it works, to see where the edge cases are, what's not working yet. Yeah. And then the other side of it is packages. We know that packages are instrumental. They're like really, really important for most Umbraco projects out there. And I mean they're a key to the success of the Umbraco CMS is the ecosystem and the community. And if we want people to start migrating, of course for most projects that's not possible before packages are there. So it's if you author a package, or if you depend on a package that needs help, please help chime in. Go to the issue tracker of your popular or your most used package and ask how you can help. That's probably the biggest thing you can do for Umbraco 9 to become a success, is to help package authors get there. The more packages we can have ready by launch, the better, and the more we can even have by when we hit the release candidate in a couple of months, will be even better, because that way we can have more real projects starting to upgrade, and we can find more edge cases and have them all fixed before we launch.
Yeah. So and I mean, now's the time to lobby your team lead or your colleagues or your package authors out there to start using and testing. Testing.
And I mean, if you have that package that you really depend on, now might be a good idea to send them a flower or a bottle of wine and say thanks for all the free work you're giving us. And is there any way we can help? I mean, it is a huge resource for all of us using Umbraco, and it's a nice time to appreciate the people you depend on. And then I want to just say touch on what Bjarke said with real projects, because as he said, like don't use this in production yet, but I mean we are what's different in our end of the story now is that from each beta to the next, we will be documenting what is changed. So if we find something needs changing, we will talk about it. We will make sure that it's clear how you get up to it and how you upgrade. Meaning that if you have a project that is due, in the fall or maybe even next year, I would absolutely start it on Umbraco 9. And get working on it, and of course give us all the feedback that you can, because as long as you follow along with the blog post and the beta candidate and the beta releases as they come on, you'll be able to upgrade and get to the stable version eventually.
Yeah, and here in the documentation you can see an example of the changes between the latest alpha 4 we released and beta 1, and this is what we're going to continue doing forward, right? So actually documenting the changes that go into each release to help either if you're doing real projects on it, or also if you're migrating your packages, just to make sure that you're able to catch up on all the changes that are happening.
Yeah, and that also shows that there's actually quite a bit of documentation already ready for Umbraco 9. And for you as a package author, it's also really nice that there's been some community members and some people from HQ and upgrading their own projects and blogging about it. Our awesome colleague Andy made a nice blog series about his journey through a migration, and Warren posted a video last week or whenever it was. And I mean, it's so nice to see that there's actually lots more and more content coming up with how to migrate. And of course, there's the forum on our now with the dedicated Umbraco 9 category where we can discuss all of these things, and that's a really good place to ask a question. So if it's not a bug, of course, bugs still go on the issue tracker. But if you have questions or doubts, the forum on our is probably the best place to get your answers.
Yeah, and speaking of documentation, there's also a list now you can find on the documentation page of all the articles that has been verified and updated for Umbraco 9, and it's actually quite a long list.
I like the way that this list is probably the longest list of documentation we've done prior to a launch.
Yeah, it's really great
kudos.
to see. So massive kudos.
And the launch is still, months away. Like this will be more or less complete before we actually launch. Like it's really nice and
it's looking really good. So massive kudos to the documentation curators team, everyone who's contributed there, and I also think the D team or the core team at Umbraco HQ has worked quite a lot on.
I think Nikolai and Elitsa really deserves a shout out here as well.
Yeah, fantastic. So great to see all of this happening. Okie dokes. Let's see. So if people try out Umbraco 9, maybe find something, of course there's the issue tracker to report it, but if they wanted to contribute to getting us closer to a really, really great release, what are the best ways of giving us feedback and contributing, Bjarke?
So yeah, if you find issues, again, the issue tracker, and even that you have an idea, you can fix it yourself. It's a good idea to create an issue and just write, I will give it a go to fix it. So we know we have a bug and we know other people are not creating the same bug and so on.
And for that, I think, am I right in saying you've actually changed the branch name today for the Umbraco 9 branch?
That's true. So the base branch is now called v9/dev, which is aligned with v8/dev and v7/dev. So now that we decided on a version number, it makes sense. The reason it was up in the air, whether we should use version 9, was mainly because we are also increasing the velocity of new major versions. Yeah. So people maybe forget that Umbraco 10 is just half a year, or when 9 is released is just half a year in the future.
Yeah.
So, and not 2.5 years or whatever our regular release frequency is.
Nice.
Yep. But also, if you find any issues in the documentation, that is also possible to. It's just a GitHub repository, so it's also possible to help and fix these issues. And also just reach out if you have questions. Use the forum. We need all questions because they can help us prioritize what areas we document first. That is pretty hard to prioritize right now.
Yeah,
right.
And if you know an area and think it's missing, you can also help out in updating that. I know that Sophie from the documentation curators team has just created an issue for Umbraco 9 documentation, which has information on how to contribute specifically to getting all of this ready. So you can submit some information in there and then get access to a Google Sheet, I think, with a list of everything that people are working on. Also to ensure that the people are not working on the same thing, so we get duplicate PRs and stuff like that. So I fantastic to see. And then, of course, we can also encourage people to share their experiences. So, I mean, raising issues and all of this stuff is of course, really, really beneficial for us and for the project. But also all of the blog posts and videos that people are doing when they're testing things out really help make it easier to start up using Umbraco 9, right? Yeah,
absolutely. Now is a good time to go to your meetup. It's never been easier than before, since most of them are remote at this time. Go to a meetup, talk about your experience and what you liked and didn't like, and start a good discussion. And
yeah, exactly. So, also what you didn't like, because it's now we can change it as soon as we reach the final release. We can't change it. It's most likely a breaking change, and then we have to wait for Umbraco 10.
Luckily, Umbraco 10 is not that far away.
I know.
So speaking of learning how to work with Umbraco 9 and getting up to speed, I've seen a lot of buzz on Twitter, especially over the last couple of days, that people are really now that it's in beta, they really want to dig into it, both Umbraco 9 and .NET Core. So what are good places to start learning about this?
So the blog post. So basically, if you follow the blog post, we have steps to get started, and from that point on, you have a solution that can run Umbraco as you know it. And then the first area we migrated completely in the documentation was extending Umbraco. So that should be possible already to find documentation about these things.
Of course, great for package authors.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're just getting started with .NET Core or .NET 5 and you're from a .NET 4.7 or whatever background, there's some really good tutorials from Microsoft directly. And I mean, all the popular learning platforms that they have lots of tutorials on, starting from scratch or starting from 4 or something or whatever. So lots of good material out there already. So we're not going to try to compete with that.
No. Yeah. But we do have some things planned coming up, right, to help people get started.
Yes, absolutely. Getting started with Umbraco, we think we're pretty good at that. So we will absolutely have more material coming there. Maybe Warren can talk about that.
Yeah, I know that our lovely colleague Emma Burstow, fellow developer advocate, is going to work with Carol, MVP from the community, and they're going to be starting a learnathon starting next Wednesday, I believe, leading all the way up every Wednesday evening, all the way leading up to Code Garden. And Bjarke and I'm sure other DT members will drop in and lend a hand. And I'll post a link to that in the chat now so that you can sign up.
You can also find it in the blog post, and I'll make sure to put it in the description on YouTube as well. But it is essentially longer meetups / workshops where you can kind of do deep dives on different areas and kind of learn with each other, ask questions and all of that stuff.
Yeah, and I guess then Warren said Code Garden. I mean, Code Garden is a pretty good place to learn all about Umbraco 9, and I mean it's coming up shortly. I think it's 5-6 weeks from now. I'm starting to feel the sweat already, so it's that'll be good, and I think that's lots of good stuff coming there. I know,
definitely. And it's virtual this year and completely free. So make sure to register for Code Garden and attend that.
I totally agree. And if you can't wait, one of the areas that is really important is how configuration works now, because you need to think in a different way. It's not complex, but it's just a completely new way to think, and that is a good thing to know. Of course, we will deep into this at Code Garden also, but if you can't wait, I know on all the good sources on the internet, Pluralsight and so on, they have very good material.
Yeah. And I think Warren is working on something for that.
Yes, I'm literally just finished editing a video for that. So that should be out later, probably tomorrow or Friday, in terms of learning how to, when we're porting a package, how the new configuration options in .NET Core applies to our Umbraco packages.
Very nice. And then we also have for both for gold partners and separately for MVPs as well. We have webinars coming very soon. I don't remember the exact date, but people have been invited to that, where they can also get a rundown of Umbraco 9 and get to ask questions there as well. So all of this is fantastic. A lot to look forward to and a lot to start testing out and trying out. Yeah. Maybe we should talk a bit about what's coming next in terms of this project. Filip,
yes. Yes, of course. We have lots of things planned for after this project. So, but I'll talk about that some more at Code Garden. Yeah. But for this project, the main focus, as I said, is packages, and of course, before we think we can call this a release candidate and make sure that everybody is safe to work on it, we need the HQ packages to be available. So Andy and Bjarke and their teams are working on migrating over Forms, Deploy, and Starter Kit, and I think those are the three that we'll focus on. And Forms is a dependency for both of the two others. So that's the first one, and it's I mean, I talked to Andy this morning, and he said that it's pretty close to being done. All the tests are passing, and everything works. So it's I would expect that we would have a pre-release of some sort. I don't really know how we're going to release it yet, but some kind of pre-release out within the next couple of weeks, and then deploy and starter kit. As I said, they depend on that. So those are next, and we expect to have all of it ready around Code Garden. So hopefully we can have a big confetti cannon and shoot something up in the air when all the packages are ready. And yeah, that's really the main difference in our end before calling it a release candidate is that the packages are ready, because that's all you as a developer need from HQ at least.
Yeah, and also just to ensure you can implement complex packages on the new new. So
yeah, maybe we will even find out ourselves that some parts of the API doesn't work, or some things are broken or needs changing, and that's also, of course, why we want to make sure that we get all of those experiences in and get them fixed in the CMS before we release the release candidate, right?
Yep.
Very, very, very nice. Well, Warren, it looks
we're flooded with questions, so be prepared.
Busy. Yeah.
Yes, I've been busy. So I know a couple of people have emailed in some questions ahead of time. I don't know if they just couldn't make it here today, but Ivan Cavelahiro, I'm sorry if I got your name wrong, but he asks, we all know that SQL CE does not run on Linux or Mac. So is there any plans to replace it with SQL Lite so we can work with Umbraco and Umbraco Cloud projects on Linux and Mac?
Yeah, so the good thing is Microsoft SQL is cross-platform, so you can just use that in Docker or directly in Linux, and we still recommend using that for production anyway. We would love to get rid of SQL Compact Edition, as it's actually a blocker on other areas, and Microsoft does not support it anymore. But it is handy for test purposes. We know that, and SQLite could be the thing to replace it, but we also know SQLite is even slower than Compact Edition, especially with the queries we have in Umbraco. So even that we supported it, I'm not 100% sure it will work probably. But the bottom line is use Microsoft SQL in production, and you can do that even from Linux or Mac.
Very nice. Damien Peters then asks, I've just seen that Orchard Core, so another .NET Core CMS, has merged a PR to support .NET 6. It might be cool if you can shed some light on how Umbraco will do this, just so that we don't fall behind the tech stack.
Yep, we were actually prepared already for the Alpha 3. Since then, .NET 6 has been in preview and available in our .NET templates. So as I said, now the web framework and Umbraco is just a NuGet dependency. So you can update your underlying framework without updating your dependencies, because the frameworks are backward compatible. So you can just use .NET 6 as soon as it's available, or you can use the preview already. That is a cool thing. But we also plan to update for .NET 6 and ASP.NET Core 6 for Umbraco 10, which is within a half a year since after .NET 6 is released. And I don't fear that update that much, because as I said earlier, also the changes is really in the web framework and not in .NET 6 or the .NET framework. And Microsoft has most focus on Blazor these days. So the changes to the MVC parts of the web framework is really minor, basically just adding the new features from the language, like records and stuff like that, is available in version 5 at least.
And I mean, the reason why we're doing it, an important thing to note is that we've a couple of weeks or months ago, I don't remember, we kind of announced that we will be having individual versions having long-term support of in Umbraco, and we're aligning that with the .NET LTSs, which means that when you go to Umbraco 10 will be the first LTS version of Umbraco on .NET Core or on .NET 5, 6 above. So hard to talk about all these numbers. And we're aligning that with the .NET 6 release that's also LTS from Microsoft. So if you choose to go with .NET 6 and Umbraco 10, you can actually stay on that and stay supported for at least in our end, it's 3 years.
Yeah, and it's also aligned with the releases of .NET. Or .NET release, right? So every second major or so will probably have the new
the .NET releases
framework.
are once a year, and we're doing 2 a year. So every other version of Umbraco will have a one up on the .NET version as well.
Fantastic. Right, Warren, next
one. I'll keep firing away. Christian Thielemann asks, .NET Core has a lot of performance benefits. Do you have any performance numbers comparing a site running on .NET Framework with a similar site running on .NET Core?
Not yet.
Not yet. I know Shannon's been busy.
I have some craftsmen working, sorry. But yeah, we're working on it. We don't have the numbers yet. We only have our gut feeling and the feels like factor. And it feels like it's faster, but we don't have any numbers. And we certainly have to look into these. But one thing to note is it's hard to compare all the metrics because .NET Core applications are booting at the time you start the application and not on the first request. So at least this metric is hard to compare. But that also feels way faster.
But we can probably do the first request faster.
Nice. Dean Lee asks, is there any known issues currently hosting on Azure WebApps at the minute?
I haven't tried it, but I don't see why. It's just a NuGet dependency. It's just a ASP.NET Core website, like if you implemented your own.
Yep, that sounds good to me.
Try it out and let us know.
Yeah, try it out, Dean. Then I've got a couple of questions. Is there a migration story from V8 or V7 to V9?
Good question.
Filip.
So the 7 to 8 migration was hard because it was like the content structure was changed, so all your content needed to be migrated, but the technology was the same. And for 8 to 9, it's the other way around. So you can actually take an Umbraco 9 version and spin it up on an Umbraco 8 database, and it works. So all the content is the same. There's no need for any migration there. So what really needs to change is of course your packages need to support Umbraco 9, and then your custom code. I mean, if you write a relatively modern .NET code, it probably runs already on .NET 5. And then it's for most of the work, it's probably going to be your views that needs changing. Mostly there's some things where, as Bjarke said, there's now dependency injection in views, and there are a couple of new patterns that we have to get your head around in terms of the view parts. But yeah, as I said, for our packages, it's like forms. It hasn't been that big a change as we were fearing. So that's really nice.
Promising.
I mean, I saw a question as well. Is there a script you can just run? And I mean, there is of course no script that will just fix everything for you. But I actually did hear about Microsoft releasing some things that can actually do some part of the migration. And theoretically, I guess Umbraco could have a schema of how all the templates are changing and stuff. So. And on that, we do accept PRs. If anybody wants to work on that, that's probably not first on our agenda. But yeah, it is absolutely possible to take your project from 8 to 9. And I would say if you're on 7, I would probably do the migration in 2 steps anyway. So I would say upgrade to 8 first, and then upgrade from 8 to 9.
Yeah. So basically, update to 8 and ensure your content and your database is up to date. You don't have to implement all views of that.
No.
But as soon as your database is up to date, then you can jump to Umbraco
9. The next question I've got is from Brano Lukac. He's asking, is Umbraco 9 Plus going to replace AngularJS 1.8 with Vue? or a new Angular, just because Angular retires at the end of this year?
That's a great question. We're not changing anything in the back office for Umbraco 9, but we have already in the works like the next generation of the back office, and to see more about that, there's an RFC, maybe we can put the link in there as well, that kind of describes what the process is from current back office to eventually a new back office. I mean, I won't take up your time with that right now, but
you can talk about that forever.
Yeah, I can talk about that for ages.
Yeah.
So I'll try to not do that. But there is a plan. It's not going to be in Umbraco 9 because we want the 8 to 9 migration to be as straightforward as possible. And of course, it's a huge project, and we don't want to delay .NET or Umbraco 9 just because of the back office.
Nice. Then I've got another question from Ed Lynch, who asks, what's going to happen with the Umbraco certifications? Are there going to be new courses, etc.?
That's a great question. I don't know if the blog post is actually out yet, Rune, but I think the overall story is that that certifications will of course change, and will no longer be tied to a major version of Umbraco. Instead, they will have a period of time where they're valid or whatever. And I'm not sure about all the numbers yet, and I'm not even sure that we are. But I think there's a blog post in the planning for May that has all of these described, and how the important point to say is that if you buy a certification now, you get all of the bridging courses for free. So don't worry about that. Don't stop your certification process right now, or hold it. Just go ahead with it, and you will get all of the migration for free afterwards.
Nice.
Yeah, it's coming very soon, the information on that.
Next question is from Brano again. Are you planning to make GraphQL endpoints available out of the box in Umbraco 9 or 10? Just currently it's only available obviously for cloud.
That's a great question as well. Not for 9. For 9, as I said, we're going to change as little as possible to actually get over the finish line, and to make the migration as easy as possible. So I guess now the answer is, if you want GraphQL, go try out Heartcore on Umbraco Cloud. It's pretty great. I'm playing around with it myself, and for a hobby project, and it's really fun. I think that's the best answer we can give right now.
But we can't just take the code from Heartcore and put into core, because
a
lot of cloud technologies. So the hard part will be to translate GraphQL to a SQL that can be queried to the database. Yeah.
If I should say just a word on that, the Heartcore, the GraphQL part is more infrastructure than it is actually code. The way it works in Heartcore, because it's impossible to do that in a performant way that actually hits Umbraco. So it's like there's a whole service layer in between that actually holds all the data, and that's what you're querying when you're doing GraphQL. And that lives in the CDN, which makes it really, really fast. And that's why it's more infrastructure than it's code, and we can't just put that in core, because that doesn't really make sense.
No, it doesn't mean that there couldn't be a potential GraphQL implementation somewhere.
No.
That could fit into the CMS itself, right? But not the stuff that we have for Heartcore. That's kind of a different beast.
Related to Heartcore, very quickly, Ovind is asking, is there an option to sync with Hasura? I'm not quite sure of this service or technology for GraphQL.
I have no idea what that is.
No.
Sorry.
So I guess not out of the box.
No.
Not that we know of.
No. Just some more questions. I'm just flicking through. Martin asks, how about the startup versus composing regarding DI? Is this the Microsoft way now? I suppose, Bjarke, you got some thoughts on that?
I recommend on your own projects just to follow the .NET Core or .NET 5 best practices and use startup. But for package developers, to have the just install and work feature available, you need to use Composer still. But also here, I recommend to just, the only thing the Composer should do is basically to register or call an extension method. That is the same you could call in your startup.
Yep. Next question I've got is from Ed Lynch, who asks, will uSync package be ready before launch? And I can actually tell him, whilst we've been on this call, Kevin has actually now got a beta out and has posted a link or an article to uSync beta for V9 beta. So there you go. I would highly likely say it's going to be ready then.
It's almost part of it.
Is that a beta of uSync working for the beta, or is it? I don't know.
It's a beta.
Yeah, very meta.
No, so I've been actually trying to understand where packages are at right now. So I've been reaching out to a number of package authors and asked them for like, what are your plans? And I think Kevin said that he was one of the ones I talked to, and I'm pretty sure he said that he was planning on getting it ready before launch. So that's really nice. And I mean, the great overall story is that that's actually the response I get from a lot of package authors. So it's looking really good in terms of actually having packages available to start the migration. And the more we can have, the sooner, the better the 9.0 release will actually be, because we can have, as I said, more migration tests done, more bugs found and fixed before the actual release. So yeah, go pat your package author on the back and ask them if you can help.
Yep, I think that's a good point. Any way you can help would be fantastic. Next question is from Manny, who asks, I'm aware that Blazor can run on a .NET 5 MVC application, which opens the opportunity to potentially use Blazor alongside Angular. Is there any thoughts on that at all? I suppose Blazor and Umbraco.
Yeah, so I think there's two questions here. One is Blazor for your app that runs on Umbraco, and that should be possible. And the other question is Blazor in the back office, and for that the answer is that's not part of the plan that we're rolling out right now.
Okay. Next question is from Marcio. I don't know if they've asked about Examine, but how are the settings for custom indexing working? Is it in XML? I suppose, Bjarke, you could probably talk about that, just because config is obviously not really XML anymore.
No, so config is not XML. And there can be small changes to the Examine implementation in the upcoming weeks, but right now it's just the code way. And which is, that is not XML, but in theory.
That's the same for 8, right?
Yeah, I think so.
It doesn't use the...
It's the same implementation as 8, basically. But I guess that when Examine is updated, it will use the new configuration. And if you use the new configuration, you could, if you really want to do it, add a XML source, and then you could maybe use XML. But I don't recommend it.
Yeah. I guess to have the proper answer for this question, we should ask Shannon. I mean, we were actually hoping on getting Shannon in this call, because he's been a big part of this work as well. And I mean, a key player really. Yeah, but apparently he's on a plane right now, and the Wi-Fi is not that awesome.
That's not a good enough excuse, Filip.
I'm sure he'll be around for the actual launch.
Of course.
Yeah,
At least I hope so.
I guess the plan is either for beta 2 or beta 3, and that'll be when the Examine is ready, right? And then we will have information on how that actually works in Umbraco 9.
Bjarke, maybe you want to talk about beta 2 and beta 3 and what we're going to do with that?
Yeah, so basically, if someone reports critical bugs already today, we'll try to fix them, and maybe the next beta will be tomorrow or the next day. We want to ship as often as possible, as often as it makes sense for package developers and not blocking you. Internally, we're using our nightly builds to update our packages, because it's easy when we know what changed. but we of course for betas we need to report that. But I don't see any reasons to delay these fixes for anybody.
Yeah.
It's not a big overhead for us to ship a new beta.
I mean, if you're crazy like that, the nightlies are available as well, so you can use them.
Yeah, and actually Forms is available as nightly already.
And you can find the links for all of that in the blog post as well.
Just a few more last couple of questions that are coming through, I suppose, before we wrap up. Next one is from Michael, and I think Rune is also asking the same thing. Is there any plans to use Entity Framework instead of nPoco?
Not right now. So if we change to Entity Framework, we wouldn't really get any benefits due to our database schemas. So to use Entity Framework, we need to re-engineer our entire database layer. And that is a bigger project. So not right now.
Not for 9.
Not for 9. Sure.
Any more questions?
Not currently. I'm just keeping a very loose eye on Twitter, but if not, I think that's everything.
Fantastic. Well, first of all, thanks to all of you guys for showing up and answering all the wonderful questions. It's been really cool to see so many questions coming in. Seems like people are quite interested in what's going on. And congratulations to all of you, both here on the stream and the entire Umbraco community on the beta launch. It's really exciting times having Umbraco available on .NET 5 very, very soon.
And thanks to everybody who contributed, people at HQ, people in the community team, but also just people in the community trying something out, reporting a bug. This is really, really important to where this project has gone. So so thanks so much. And to all you package authors out there, yeah, you are awesome. And we hope to make this a great experience for you. And we hope that you're ready by launch as well.
And now go try it out and let us know how you get on.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.